Hi everybody, it's me, Queen City Prepper, and welcome back to my channel. So, the one thing I did do for my prepping, preparedness and whatnot within the last, month or so is I went and I got my CPR and first aid training. I went and got first aid CPR Level 3 training done. It took 2 days. I had been getting that training for like 12 years. Oh, they expire every so many years. You got to go and get, if you know when it's going to expire, and if you go and get recertified before it expires, it's only a 1-day course, but if it lapses, then you got to take the full 2 days all over again. So that's what happened, because mine had expired like a year or two ago or something, so then I had to go and take the whole course all over again, which was fine. It's a really good refresher course, and I think it's one of those courses that should be mandatory. I think everybody should have them. If you have kids, you should definitely get trained in your, first aid and CPR level 3 or level C. That's the highest level you can get, aside from, if you want to go and be a medic or something like that. But it's a valuable training, and you never know when you're going to need it. I mean, maybe you live on a farm somewhere and you're like an hour, 2 hours away from town or to the nearest hospital. Maybe you're out for dinner somewhere and maybe your husband starts choking, and you don't know what to do. They said that a lot of people, the majority of chokings occur in restaurants, and a lot of the deaths will occur in the bathroom because they start choking and they can't, breathe, and they go to the bathroom because they're like kind of creating a scene, and nobody goes and checks on them, and then they collapse and die in the bathroom or whatever because they can't breathe and nobody went and checked on them. And so yeah, you never know when you're going to need it. And like I said, if you have kids, I think you owe it to your kids to go and get trained in that. I mean, that's just one of the things we should keep on top of, just as being responsible adults, right? Even if you don't have kids, like I said, you never know when you may need it, or when maybe a loved one or a friend, or maybe you come across a situation where you want to help somebody, but if you're not trained, then you could do more harm than good. So go get trained in that. I went and got mine done. It's like 2 days. And another thing, sometimes employers will pay for you to go get trained in your first aid and CPR. So if you are working, why not ask? Maybe you can get your employer to pay for it, and then it doesn't cost you anything. Also, if you've been on EI, depending on where you're from, and how long ago and all that kind of stuff, sometimes they'll pay for that too. So it's worth looking into. Like, it's a really good investment to have, and it's just one of those skill sets that you hope you don't ever have to use it, but it's good to have it under your belt anyway, and to know what to do in a situation like that, instead of getting caught in a situation wishing you knew what to do, feeling all helpless because you don't know what the hell you're doing, and maybe that person ends up dying or whatever happens, right? So this way, at least get yourself some skills, and hopefully you'll never have to use them, but it's better to be prepared and not have to use it than to be totally unprepared and need to have those kind of skills and you don't have that training at all. So go get trained, whether it's through the Red Cross or whatever organization does that training in your community. Look into it and get it done, plain and simple. What else? Also, if you want to look into like any kind of natural medicines and stuff like that, that's another thing to look into. And also to be aware with mixing like natural medicines with over-the-counter type medicines. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because this is something that happened to my mom. Okay, quite a few years ago, my mom had a stroke. Doctor was telling her, well, we'll give you some blood thinners. Well, instead of blood thinners, well, take aspirin. take baby aspirin, take 2 baby aspirin every day, or just 1 aspirin a day. Fine, so she's doing that. And she also leans towards like natural remedies and things like that, and she loves garlic. Garlic and onions, I mean, our whole family kind of, that's one of our main things. It's, you know, kills bacteria, kills viruses, whatever else. Boosts your immune system, right? Well, she was taking garlic capsules for her, like, immune system, right? What she didn't know is garlic also thins the blood. She was already taking the aspirin, which is already a blood thinner, in addition to taking the garlic, which is also another blood thinner. What happened is she wound up having a nosebleed for like 4.5 hours before she phoned me, feeling really weak and shaky and saying, Yvonne, something's wrong, my nose hasn't stopped bleeding for 4.5 hours. I'm like, what are you doing? Freaking out. So I rushed my mom to the hospital. What had happened is you know, she kind of got hecked. They were like, okay, you know, your blood shouldn't be this thin. Aspirin wouldn't do this alone. Like, what, are you taking anything else? In her mind, she's not taking any other kind of medication. She's only taking garlic, right? So yeah, you need to be careful. So the doctor said either it's the aspirin or the garlic, but you can't take both at the same time, because then your blood will, and at least in her case, would not clot. So they had to actually cauterize inside of her nose to stop the bleeding and whatnot. It was just horrendous. She waited way too long. A nosebleed that lasts more than 15 minutes, you need to get to the hospital. It should not last more than 15 minutes. Something's wrong. It could be a head injury, it could be something else going on, but whatever it is, if your nose is bleeding for more than 15 minutes, get to the hospital. I mean, it could be nothing, but it's better to be safe than sorry. In her case, she waited 4.5 hours before going to, well, before even phoning me, and then of course I freaked out on her on the phone. We were both living in the city. I zipped over to her place, picked her up, rushed her into the hospital. They burned the inside of her nose to stop the bleeding. She got hecked for taking the garlic and the aspirin. You know, so one or the other kind of thing. You just have to be really aware, because, you know, not to say that natural medicine isn't good, not to say that, you know, over-the-counter prescription type medicine isn't good, but you need to be very careful if you ever mix the two. My grandparents, who are medicine people, always said, you never mix the two. They're really old school in that way, because they knew that there could be an adverse reaction to this versus that. You know, one or the other kind of thing. And that's pretty much what her doctor told her. It's like one or the other. You can't take the garlic and the aspirin. So, just to be aware of things like that. Educate yourselves. Research, you know, things like that. If you want to get into natural remedies and whatnot, really look into things like that. I mean, there's a lot of things out there that pregnant and nursing women should not ingest or even touch, because it could be absorbed into their skin, into their bloodstream, and affect them and the baby. So, I mean, there's a lot of things out there that you have to be very careful of, and just because it's a plant or comes from nature, don't think it can't hurt you, because, I mean, that's where we get a lot of our poisons from. You know, belladonna is one of them. We can use that as a sedative or a painkiller, and we can also, you know, it can be used to kill somebody. So, I mean, you need to know what you're doing. So just because it's a plant or something from the wild, don't automatically assume that it's harmless. It can kill you. And also, there's a lot of copycat plants out there that look very much the same as the non-lethal plant, and if you pick the wrong one, it could be the poisonous one. So you need to do a lot of research if you're going to go into, you know, foraging in the wild or using natural remedies and things like that. You really need to do your homework and research it and be very aware. And if you have any chance to get to know other folks that are into herbalism or, you know, natural medicines and things like that, you know, go to the experts, you know, in their field. Go talk to people that have been on that path for some time and know what the hell they're doing. Don't just go and pick something from the forest thinking, you know, you can eat it when they can turn around and kill you. So you need to be careful about that. So yeah, go get trained in first aid CPR level 3. And if you're going to get into the whole natural medicines and things like that, which is great, you know, if you can take classes, go talk to people who are already along in that path and know what they're doing. Do your research, do your homework, and be very careful. Okay, so that's it for now. We'll talk to you guys later. Ciao.